by those who had prepared any about individuals that we may not know in our own Black history. So at this time, Pastor Crystal Donisha Mansker.
So we're going to have Valerie go first.
Okay, Mrs. Valerie Flowers will give us her presentation.
Come on, you can do it.
Okay,
Push
you
on
do
up,
it, do
push
it.
on
I
up.
can do it.
Wait, grab her area.
Grab her ear.
No, thank you, Pastor. Thank you.
We want to lose that.
Right. Just got it. Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
My presentation is on Lieutenant Stacy Harris. I think we should roll the video first. And it'll give you a little bit of information. I think it'll be a little bit more entertaining, and then I'll add to it. Come on.
More than 30 years. Lieutenant... Lieutenant General Stacy Harris is the highest-ranking African-American female military pilot in all the United States Armed Forces. She has been an inspirational leader and mentor to young people everywhere for more than 30 years. Lieutenant General Harris began her Air Force flying career in 1984, flying the C-141, and quickly advanced to aircraft commander and air operations officer. Following her active duty service, she transitioned to the Air Force Reserve and began a career as a commercial airline pilot flying the Boeing 747 for United Airlines. She excelled in the Air Force Reserve and was promoted to commander of an airlift squadron and Air Force Expeditionary Group, flying air refueling missions in the Middle East and an air refueling wing. She served in critical high-level staff positions as the Air Force Reserve Mobilization Assistant to the commander of U.S. Africa Command and Air Mobility Command. She was the first woman commander of the 22nd Air Force, a unit with 15,000 airmen. Today, Lieutenant General Harris is the Assistant Vice Chief of Staff and Director, Air Staff Headquarters, U.S. Air Force, Washington, D.C. She also serves as Deputy Chairman of the Air Force Council and is the Air Force Accreditation Official for the International Corps of Air Attaches. Lieutenant General Harris has logged more than 2,500 hours in military aircraft, including the C-130H, KC-135R, C-141B and C, T-38, and T-37. Lieutenant General Harris has not only dedicated her life in service to this country, but also in mentoring and inspiring young people to careers in aviation and the Air Force.
She seemed to be a pretty powerful young woman.
Yes,
And
indeed.
she seems to have come from she was an Army brat, or Air Force brat. Her father was a career Air Force airman, actually. And this, I have a picture here of one of her accommodation ceremonies where she is being pinned by two of the original Tuskegee Airmen on the left here, which are her mentors, obviously. On the left is General Darren McDew, and on the right is Mr. Pouncey. And she was so thrilled, she was saying, so thrilled to have them. And they were so thrilled because of her carrying on their legacy. So in this article, this was taken in 2016, so some of the information there was a little bit more current. But it explains a little bit about her passions for going into the Air Force and whatnot, or into the positions of leadership. And so it was saying that as of this time, it had been a big year for women in the military. As of 2016, marked the first time women could apply to serve in all military and occupations and positions, and saw more females leaders hit occupational milestones. Lieutenant General Stacey Harris, a reserve pilot by trade, this year became the first female African American to ever achieve the rank of Lieutenant General for the Air Force and earned the job Assistant Vice Chief of Staff and Director of the Air Staff for the service. She is also the first woman and the first reservist to return active duty to fill the position. But the achievements don't dictate how Harris views herself or her career. She says she simply wants to light a spark for others to realize they too can serve their country. I think my passion has always been I realized about myself, my passion, although I can think strategically, I am a grassroots leader and I care deeply about the airmen. Harris recently told military.com in an interview, so the smallest things the airmen have against the military, I feel deeply about. Even though we can evolve in technology, sometimes there just isn't the greatest interoperability with the Guard and the Reserve, and I would like to help in those issues. Harris is a mediator between the Air Staff and the Air Force Secretary Staff and the major commands, plus the staff directors from the other services. Additionally, she still engages with civic leaders and acts as the certifying official for air attachés. Initially, I just want us to be more organized, but I want us to collaborate more, Harris said. I think a lot of organizations, especially ones that have been placed there for a long time, have you operate in silos. There's a great work going on in those silos, but a lot of the work is being duplicated amongst other silos. And what I want to do is really rally the team to see where we no longer have to duplicate efforts, but complement each other's efforts. Harris believes in Chief Staff General David Godfin's push to review and revitalize the makeup of the fundamental unit of squadrons, which are announced in the greater details in the last month of the airforce.com and this, that, and the other. It means, okay, this is about her service and her family. Following in the footsteps of her father, who was in the Air Force all of Harris's life, she knew she was every 2 years, the family got to move to new and exciting places. She enrolled in junior ROTC in high school and quickly got involved in leadership at labs and drill teams. She went on to study engineering in North Carolina State, later transferring to the University of Southern California. Harris pursued the undergraduate pilot training program while in school in '76. Women entered the pilot training as military personnel for the first time, a milestone that signified women could fly outside of Women's Auxiliary Ferrying Squadron or the Women's Air Force Service pilots, which were both distended around the same time. In 1977, 10 women became members of the Air Force's first group of female undergraduate pilot students. But because of pride side, Harris graduated and initially went on to active duty. She didn't qualify at that time. She did eye exams and this, that, and the other, and later she did qualify. She commanded there for a year and during 9/11 and had an incredible team of airmen that led and flew superbly, especially during the time when no other planes were flying. Your Air Force planes were flying, and we were actually delivering firemen and their supplies from California to New York at the time, she said. Harris eventually transferred to the KC-135 Shear Stratotanker and deployed to Maroon Air Base, Spain. The base, at that time, acted as a staging point for the U.S. forces to Iraq, and the tanker grid for aircraft headed to the Middle East. She served as a wing commander, assistant to the commander at the U.S. African Command in the 18th Air Force at South Scott Air Force Base, Illinois, and the Air Mobility Command also at Scott. While serving under the AFRICOM, she oversaw projects such as pandemic disaster response and would tidy for weeks at a time to various countries in Africa. She also was commander of the Air Force Reserve's 22nd Air Force at Dobbins Air Force Base, with the 15,000 airmen, but she was also over a duty at March Air Force Base right here in Moreno Valley. She has recently retired, but she still speaks on to various young people for services like Black History Month and things like that, and new recruits and whatnot. So I thought she was a pretty interesting lady.
Amen.
And I was trying to find out where Valicia was in the process during her time of service, and I thought that'd be pretty interesting. So thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, she's, Stacy is a good friend of, two of my good friends.
Really?
When she was promoted to Lieutenant General, Monica,
Yeah,
and
that's her.
Larissa's sister, and
Wow.
and they flew back, and she let them, they was in her beautiful home. She lives in Maryland.
Get out.
And she was just here a few months ago. They had a big party, so they were all together there. And I want to meet her. They said, you got to meet her, but I couldn't make it.
Oh my
And
goodness.
she's never been married.
Right.
And
Over any
she's-
kids?
No kids.
She said her recruits, her
Right.
airmen
Right.
were her kids.
Yeah,
She
she
had a
sort
lot of
of
them.
private. She said she really sort of regret that because
Yeah.
Yeah.
she would have liked to,
Yeah.
but she did. She's achieved so much. Like you said,
Man.
when I saw her, I went, oh, that's Stacy.
It's a small world.
Yeah.
That's
Anybody
very
have,
interesting.
anybody else have anything prepared for today?
Yeah, I do. It's not on screen, so. Out of this spur of the moment. Again, this is commemorating the black woman in our history. And this is talking about Mary Fields, if you've never heard about her. She was one remarkable lady. And she was born a slave in Hickman County, Tennessee in 1832. She was freed when slavery was outlawed in the United States in 1865. Then she worked in the home of Judge Edmund Dunn. When Dunn's wife Josephine died in 1883 in San Antonio, Florida, Fields took the family's 5 children to their aunt, Mother Mary Amadeus, the Mother Superior of the Ursuline Convent in Toledo, Ohio, and which is remarkable that she packed up all of those children and taken them from Florida to Ohio. That was not an easy journey back in those days. So in 1884, Mother Amadeus was sent to Montana Territory to establish a school for Native American girls at St. Peter's Mission, west of the Cascades. Learning that Amadeus was stricken with pneumonia, Fields hurried to Montana to nurse her back to health. Amadeus recovered, and Fields stayed in St. Peter's, hauling freight, doing laundry, growing vegetables, tending chickens, and repairing buildings, and eventually became the forewoman. Now we're going to start to get to the real part, because this was a tough lady. Kind of reminds me of Harriet Tubman. And she did not take any stuff. So the Native Americans called her White Crow, because she acts like a white woman but has black skin. Local whites did not know what to make of her. One schoolgirl wrote in an essay saying, she drinks whiskey and she swears, and she is a Republican which makes her a low, foul creature. Isn't that something? But to let you know just how tough she was, because back in those days, it was not ladylike for women to drink whiskey. But she did away with all those myths. So in 1894, after several complaints and an incident with a disgruntled male subordinate that involved gunplay, they shot it out, the bishop ordered her to leave the convent. She was a little bit too rough for the nuns in there. So Mother Amadeus helped her open a restaurant in nearby Cascade. Fields would serve food to anyone, whether they could pay or not, and the restaurant closed due to bankruptcy approximately 10 months later. You can't keep serving free food and want to keep your business as a restaurateur. So this is the part that she really stands out in the Postal Service. In 1895, although approximately 63 years old, Field was hired as a mail carrier because she was the fastest applicant to hitch a team of 6 horses. This made her the first African-American woman to work for the U.S. Postal Service.
Whoa.
She drove the route with horses and a mule named Moses. She never missed a day, and her reliability earned her the nickname Stagecoach. She was nicknamed Stagecoach Mary. If the snow was too deep for her horses, Fields delivered the mail on snowshoes, carrying the sacks on her shoulders.
Oh, wow.
Woo, this is a tough lady. Later in life, she was a respected public figure in Cascade, and the town closed its schools to celebrate her birthday each year. When Montana passed a law forbidding women to enter saloons, the mayor of Cascade granted her an exemption. In 1903, at the age of 71,
Whoa.
Fields retired from Star Route mail carrier service. He continued to babysit many Cascade children and owned and operated a laundry service from her home. She died in 1914 at Columbus Hospital in Great Falls, but she was buried outside of Cascade. And here's one of the things that she was known. She was a known lady for being tough. In 1959, a Montana native, Gary Cooper, if I know the young people may not remember him, but he was a great actor, cowboy star, always portrayed that rough and tough marshal or cowboy. And so this was a great honor for him to say this about this lady. He wrote in an article for Ebony, in which he wrote, "Born a slave somewhere in Tennessee, Mary lived to become one of the freest souls ever to draw a breath." And so Stagecoach Mary, one of the movies that portrayed her was Hell on Wheels. There was a woman in that movie that drove the stagecoach and the wagons, and that was Stagecoach Mary. And so they was giving her her props. And the lady that played her was Amber Sade Robinson. And she was featured in 5 episodes of that particular television series. So she was an extraordinary woman. A woman back in those days, born a slave, and eventually became the first woman to work for the Postal Service, and was reliable, and she never missed a day. She always delivered the mail, no matter how difficult it was. And she was a tough lady. No, she would not let any man buffalo her, as it says, or stand in her way. And she is certainly an icon and a person to look up to for endurance, intestinal fortitude, and the saying of never giving up. So we need to give honor to Stagecoach Mary. Well, she certainly is one of our legacies that's really unknown and most people don't know about. But she is certainly a woman of great stature and bravery.
Amen.
Amen.
Anyone else?